Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Health Tech with Purpose. Today we are joined by a true leader in the world of innovation and entrepreneurship, Doug Williams. Doug isn't just passionate about building successful companies, he's driven by a mission to use technology to tackle some of the world's biggest challenges, from healthcare equity to affordable housing. Join us as we explore Doug's journey and delve into some fascinating topics like the intersection of startups and GenAI, the power of FHIR interoperability, and the future of AI in healthcare.
Hello, Doug. How are you today?
Good, Ayush. Nice to see you.
Same here. So, Doug, why not we start with a quick introduction about yourself? I did mention some of the accolades, but I would like to know from you, the different things you have been involved in, maybe in a chronological order. You could start, like where you started, where did you grow up, and what led to the different uh, things, that you were involved in, and how did you grow them up?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, you had in the questions you had where did you start your journey? So that seemed like we can start there. So I have the good fortune of being from a family of people of engineers. Both my grandfathers, my dad, as well as folks involved in healthcare. So my wife's dad, my sister, my mom. So I've got kind of a technology and healthcare background, which was I'm very lucky to have. And we're similar generations. I might be a little ahead of you, but we've had the good fortune of having the age of electronics. Growing up, seeing all the developments that have been basically continuous. And so as I was growing up, I had the Radio Shack, electronic kits, the chemistry kits, all very accessible. And I thought it would be a fun way to have a career if I could take these new developments and figure out ways to use them in useful ways. So that's basically what I've been able to do, and it's been a great ride. So, and along those lines, I've been able to ride successive waves. So I also was interested in startups. I thought large companies are critically important to the world. We need innovation at large companies, but it's a bit of a cheat to do startups because you can start small, and if you focus on your customers, thinking how to use the tech, you can go from small to bigger, which I've been able to do. And I've been able to ride successive waves. The internet, an education startup we sold to Pearson, the largest education publisher, did a couple platforms, rode the mobile waves as head of engineering for Zipcar and Runkeeper, and most recently have been focused in healthcare, I think, which is where we intersect, trying to kind of modernize, use what we learned in the consumer spaces and apply it to healthcare. That's basically we're all used to healthcare or to consumer apps. That's the
Mhm.
bar. And in healthcare, we want to raise the bar to have similar capabilities, whether you're in a hospital or you're a patient. And that's
Right.
ultimately where I'm focused. And then at MIT, they asked me to come in and build tools for startups. So I've done multiple startups. Now I'm a kid in a candy store getting to build tools for entrepreneurs and
Mhm.
using the latest. So the latest wave is the generative AI wave, and we're building using the latest AI tools to build what is turning out to be quite useful tools for entrepreneurs built on MIT's discipline entrepreneurship and startup tactics frameworks. So that's me. That's a monologue on it. But very lucky to have grown up during this time Now I feel like our generation needs to help correct and sponsor the new folks coming in to fix the problems that we've left, climate, healthcare. Just came out of a MIT session with ocean MBAs looking at climate tech. So great
Okay.
place to be, and we're trying to make these tools available ultimately worldwide, which is consistent with MIT's mission.
Right. So very interesting. And Doug, I've seen like the versatility in your experience, and I think the agility to change gears that you have done so well throughout this career. That's really commendable. Because making those choices and like going with the possibilities is equally important for one to grow, just like now you have joined the hotbed of Gen AI, what I can see, at Orbit, the MIT's entrepreneurship platform. So tell us more about that, and then also elaborate more about the Gen AI view from where you see it, like, because lot is happening with AI today, but we would love to learn your insights into it and what's coming in the future.
Yeah. I have had the good fortune to have worked across a number of successful ventures, and I think I feel like I've been able to assist, but essentially uh, I've been able to find people that had mission-driven um, uh, startup companies. And what I've been able to do is really pattern match really, really well. So I basically have been able to find places that really felt like they could go forward. And then my main goal was to help keep pushing the opportunity up into the right. And That's made it easy to move around so that my agility is basically knowing a lot of other smart people and collaborating with them. Certainly that was the case here at MIT. So when the Gen AI wave hit, we were all sort of trying to figure out where to get our feet on the ground. And When I feel like I'm a little unmoored, I usually begin to think who can help me get unmoored, and began reaching out. And certainly being at MIT is there's a lot of people, so you look for
Lot of
people you
smart
want to
people.
work with who can help. And Now I found a huge group of people that we can help. But the critical part that I would impart to anybody is think about what problems you're trying to solve, and then how the technology can work to solving those problems, as opposed to getting enamored just with the technology and developing it, and then later trying to figure it out. So we just came out of a session with we have a week long boot camp for ocean MBAs, and we emphasized uh, really thinking about who's your target market, who's your beachhead market. Essentially, with any new technology, where can you be great? Where can you make a difference? And this is true at large companies. If you're doing a new initiative, who's your customer? How is this going to improve? What problems are you solving? How is this going to improve from the status quo? And Ayush, I know as you work with your clients, you try to steer them to the same thing, and you look for clients that are thinking that way. That's really the whole game. And then the technology comes afterwards.
Right, right. So how you basically making a difference really, and it you cannot start with the technology basically. So you have to start with the problem, and then is there technology, or can you make a technology that can solve it?
usually, always, at least for me, starting with what's the problem and then figuring out the technology, how it can make a difference. And kind of riding, if as mobile applications come to the forefront, how could we apply those? So keeping an outlook for people that are doing things that are, for me, the first piece is, do I care about the mission of the company? So I would strongly encourage people, do I care about it? Will my friends care about it? So if I'm helping recruit others, would I want them? Would I be proud to bring them in? I think are critical. And do I think it can be successful? If you bring all your friends to a place that can't be successful, then that's hard for everybody. So kind of get an assessment what I think the prospects are, how the entity can make money, and do I agree with the mission? And that's first. And then figuring out, do I like the people involved? Is this somebody I want to work with? Because you can be with people you want to work with and going down a place where you're 5 years too early. There's the people often say, I had that idea 2 years ago. My answer is inevitably, that's great. It's all about timing. So is the timing right?
Right.
So the right people, the right timing, and then you can kind of build around those things. And that's what I'm looking for, that fit. So I was a runner, so Runkeeper was a natural fit. That was also a kid in a candy store. I've been a startup person working here at the Trust Center and providing tools at MIT, but also beginning to make them available worldwide. Super appealing. And now we're in the stage of, are they really giving useful outputs? And the fun thing for us is they are beginning to give very useful outputs. I can speak more about what we're doing and what that is, but that's basically the recipe I followed. And Ayush, I think you've done similarly. I think you've steered more to healthcare because you see the need and the expertise. So you can't be great at everything. When you do work, you want you and your company to be great. And similar.
In order to go deep, you have to focus because otherwise you are just too spread too thin, basically.
Yeah, and you can't be great. You just if you're just coding, you're just okay across things. You want to, like you all have focused on healthcare. You can get great in it. That's what I've tried to do, and that's what I always recommend for startups is, where are you going to be world class? And do you see a path? You might not start there, but you should have a path to it.
Right. No, makes so much sense, definitely, Doug. But I'd like to touch upon the Ocean MBA. Would like to learn more what's happening there, and especially around climate. So because we know we're sitting on a time bomb, and for most of us, really don't have any control on it, like what we can really do. So
Yeah.
tell us more. Since you have been deep into that for the recent times.
So I'm at the Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneurship, the Entrepreneurship Center, and our thinking is we're going to need entrepreneurs like you, Ayush, and entrepreneurs like the Ocean MBAs to solve our biggest problems. We're going to need that level of innovation. So we're really encouraging mission-driven startups wherever possible. Climate is one of the big initiatives. MIT's just launched a climate center for exactly the reasons that it's an existential threat. So these are folks with a whole range of different technologies, biotech, microalgae for more efficient aquaculture, new battery technologies, carbon capture, a whole range of different solutions. We segment those.
This episode of Health Tech with Purpose podcast is brought to you by MindBowser, a product engineering and digital transformation company focused on health. At MindBowser, we enable health companies to build the future of health, where accessible, equitable, and patient care.
We strongly believe that technology can empower a healthier world, and that's why we are partnering with healthcare experts like yours to make it happen.
Hi guys, thanks for listening to Health Tech with Purpose. Make sure to subscribe us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube for more expert insights on industry innovation and transformation. And remember, share the knowledge.
Solutions, and then ask them to further segment it. So we're helping. Our role, we feel, is to give them the best tools. So I just presented our AI tools to them. And we're beginning to refine our tools to specialize for things like climate and healthcare. So we're trying to give them the best education we have, and then begin to build communities. So this Ocean MBA is a boot camp for other people in climate startups to meet each other, meet investors, and get MIT-style training. And then as we work, this is a worldwide problem. So MIT's mission is to serve MIT in the world. We're looking to where we can take our learnings and make them available worldwide, which is why I'm happy to talk to you. You've got a worldwide perspective.
Right. No, true that. And it, like you said, it's not a problem of a particular area or a country. It's like a global biggest problem. In fact, just to share, we as a company, just became carbon neutral certified this year. So we ourselves, and that's one of the values I had taken when I went to Berkeley, and it was all about, like, while work is important, you have to still do it in a way that is sustainable and good to the environment, good to the people. So, all these values, while may look small, they make a lot of difference to how you really live your life, you build your company or build things, and so on. So I'm like always, in fact, a big proponent of the whole cause, because I can see that it's such a big problem that has to be solved, and we can at least do small bits wherever and whenever possible.
That's right. And we encourage the students to be thinking that way. How can they make a difference in the world? I think each of us has to do our part. And then we're also looking for these really smart innovators to come up with ideas that we may not have thought of. And so that's the kinds of things we're doing with the climate MBAs, for instance.
Right. What do you see as the recipe for making these startups really make a mark? Because, of course, everybody starts with a promise of making a world-class product or making a dent to the world. But then what could be those repeatable lessons that you would like to share for student startups, not only at MIT, but also throughout the world? Because, like you said, we all need new entrepreneurs and new thinking, and students and young people are our hope. So, how we can all do better at it, or how we can create that ecosystem, or what lessons we need to inculcate to the young Turks.
Yeah, great question. And we think about that a lot because we're the center here at MIT, and we feel a responsibility here and beyond. So we're very lucky. You were at Berkeley. That's another hotbed where you've got all the elements. But how do we make those available worldwide? So I've worked with people in Pune and Shanghai. Those are other hotbeds. So the U.S. doesn't have a monopoly on these things, but we do want to share best practices of what we learned. The elements, certainly leadership. Ayush, you provide that for your organization. I think having strong, committed, ideally more about the mission, less about the ego style leadership is critical. That's what investors are looking for. Folks can run the risk of looking at investment first. Often, with today's technology, a lot of problems can be solved much less expensively. Not always true in climate, which is what we're trying to help sponsor, but certainly in software. And Ayush, you've certainly seen that. And so we really work on focusing on the customer solution first and then the building of it later. From a technology standpoint, I'm pretty confident, I think you are, Ayush, as well, that if we're asked to build something, we can build almost anything.
Right.
It's really just amount of time and resources, and more resources isn't always better. So it's a tight focus and really understanding the problem to be solved and the priorities of the problem to be solved. So if you have a big problem, you can't eat an elephant in one bite. You have to eat it a step at a time. So those basic understandings, which certainly in software, I think we're understanding, really help. I think as you're solving problems, understanding investors who are also interested in the idea is critical. That does become the fuel. So I think having early conversations and relationships, if you're building a company on the innovation side, is important, but also looking how far you can get on your own investments. You'll have more control. So at Runkeeper, Jason was able to build a lot out, small, and so he ultimately had a lot of final say until we sold it to ASICs. So Ayush, you must be thinking that way too, how much you can self-fund. But it all comes back to looking at the problem and then looking at the market opportunity and providing a map, an economic map along with a technology map is the key.
Right, right. True that. And we often say that in technology that, building is easy, but finding the market fit or the use case benefit, is important and becomes really the key for finding success because,
Yeah.
Technology today is definitely far more easy, if I can just say, as compared to, how difficult it was, say, building something, say, 10 years or 20 years back. But then you still have to, make sure that what you're building is really fit for the audience or for the problem that you're solving. And we still
Yeah.
get surprised all the time.
And that's the risk, is it's fairly easy to build an app. And so you kind of get started before you focused on it. And Runkeeper would be a good example. Obviously, the early focus was running. As we began to get ourselves bigger, we began adding other sports, and to the point where, biking, and a lot of runners do kind of cross training, but we began to find ourselves developing more of a general health app as opposed to, so we were a good general health app as opposed to a great running app. And so we had to refocus, and we found the employees at Runkeeper tended to be former runners. Their idea of running is 6 to 8 minute miles. I started there, but as I've gotten older, I began to evolve into our target market, which we found was actually beginning to intermediate runners. And so when we finally refocused ourselves on running, that was the market. If you're going to carry a phone, you're more of a beginning to intermediate runners. And we became a gateway to running, which was a fabulous place to be. And that's what ASICS was most interested in, is that broader segment. So even Runkeeper, we had to redouble our efforts and refocus on running. And that's a message I think, Ayush, you would want for your clients as well. It can be sometimes too easy to build, and the action on building becomes a substitute for real market knowledge. So when we focused back on running, we had to go back out. We actually accosted people on the street and asked them, and commendable to our user experience department. So here we're always talking about focusing on the customer. You don't get smarter talking to your own team, you get smarter talking to your customers.
So my last question, Doug, for today would be, again, I'll go back since you are in such a perfect, place in terms of where innovation, intelligence, and technology are coming together. So what are your big bets or big ideas that you're counting on, or the great themes that are coming along that you see in the next 3 to 5 years to make the world better?
Yeah. So in the near term, we've been really heartened. Everyone's looking at the large language models and trying them out. That becomes just tools available for all of us to build on. So just like the mobile technologies, we could build on Android and iOS. We could count on those and the hardware associated, the cloud infrastructure we could count on. We can now count on the essentially the large language models will be in an arms race to build the best possible. And so for us that are not at the large tech companies, we can apply the technology. So it really comes down to thinking through the same things we've been talking about, where you apply it. And so we found great success. We have a 24-step entrepreneurship framework. It's a lot of steps, but it's the right steps. It's thinking about the customer, thinking about the finance. I think Ayush, you've looked at it. We've pulled the best practices across a range of books and research. So what we've been surprised at is how well the models work when we focus it step by step by step. When we were blending it, they got confused, but our frameworks really help. So thinking about problems like that, we have alumni working in the Australian railway system. They could do the same things. They have process documents they could automate. In my mind, particularly on the AI side, is thinking how to assist a human rather than replace a human. So a lot of us have been surprised at the push for self-driving cars, but the technology to assist drivers is fantastic. Taking a driver out of it as a software engineer, I get concerned. I think the only software without bugs is not used, but you can have bugs as long as a human is there to kind of catch it, and you can push the boundaries. So when we provide tools for entrepreneurs, they're AI assistants for entrepreneurs. There's no substitute for the entrepreneur doing its own research, but boy, you can provide assistance. So I would encourage users to think about where are areas that you could provide assistance rather than replacing people. So all the process documents you have at large corporations, healthcare, which is the area that both of us are focused on, is ripe for that. The world's corpus of healthcare information has been put online. If you're a nurse or a doctor, you're doing Google searches today. That data is very accurate. All the coding systems, SNOMED codes for diagnoses, LOINC codes for lab results, those are all published and continually published. AI can do a great job of pulling that together as long as we're thinking that there's a human then examining the results and finding ways to continue to make the results better, which will happen somewhat automatically as we train the models, but also as you're developing projects in healthcare, you want to keep thinking about how do you help a human help a patient. And I think in those areas we can be fairly aggressive and beginning to do, I've been involved in the FHIR work for standardizing healthcare, beginning to think how we can do automation, but all with the idea of making a better experience for the patient, if we can stay patient focused, and keeping humans in there, not just trying to automate it. I think we make mistakes. I've done a bunch of automation projects, literally in factories, and I've had a few where I had to back off the automation. I inherited the first line where we tried to take too many humans out and was asked to improve it, and I put more humans back in. So the goal should be to assist our fellow humans, and if you do that, I think the new technologies can be really used aggressively because there's someone looking at the outputs, and keeping focus on how you're making the world better with what you're doing. That's my take.
Okay. No, well said. I think it again connects back to the foundation piece of how there are still these foundational problems that need to be solved, and from that only, like some of the great companies or startups or ideas would come out.
Yeah. And the you asked kind of where do I think, we've got the big well-known, the Anthropics or Perplexities. I personally am hoping companies like Liquid AI people are beginning to look at how to make these large language models more efficient. I think it's going to be important. So it's not just applying the technology. We need to make sure that we're applying it in ways that are good for the world, including, I think that's one of the problems I have personally with Bitcoin is the energy consumption, much less the other issues. But large language models can help us. We need to find ways to make them more efficient, and people like Liquid AI
There
are
was this,
thinking that way.
there was this Microsoft launch of a mini LLM kind of thing, which can be run on a less capacity and can be for a specific task or a specific kind of
That's right. And
work.
Ethan Mollick is talking about agents. So smaller LLMs for specific tasks, I think are really going to, and distributed. So our phones, our laptops, can run the large language models. And we just need to think about it both from efficiency at getting the job done, but also at things like energy efficiency. Shame on us if we invent this new technology that doubles our energy consumption. We haven't really moved the bar forward. So I'm hoping that we see innovations in those kinds of areas.
Yeah, that's super awesome stuff, Doug. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed this conversation and some points well taken. So thank you so much. And it was a pleasure hosting you.
Thank you, Ayush, and good luck to you and your team. So, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Health Tech with Purpose podcast. Before you leave, make sure to like and subscribe on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And if you would like to see someone on this podcast, do refer to us. My contact details are in the description. Before I leave, I wish you stay healthy, stay curious, and keep building.